My name is Hunter, and this is the Steps Together podcast, and I'm here with Carmela. And so can you tell us about who you are?
Yeah, I'm Carmela, and I'm a 41-year-old mother of one from Essex. And my day job is an event manager, but a lot of people will know me from the work I do on Instagram, which is blogging about my sobriety journey and coaching people to go alcohol-free.
Love that. Love that. Well, what was life like in Essex growing up?
Yeah, so, I guess from, the outside, I had a very much idyllic childhood, loving parents, brother, close-knit family. But my family, there was alcohol addiction that actually run on my mother's side of the family. And, I don't think you come out of childhood that has been touched by alcohol in any sort of extreme way, unscathed. It was definitely an experience that I feel impacted me and my relationship with alcohol later on in life.
And what was life like growing up, like in that type of environment with, people that suffered from this?
I think as a child, it's really hard to understand what's going on. You don't feel very secure, and that's mainly down to the fact that the people that you know who love and look after you, when they've had a drink, they're not the same person. And I think that's quite scary and confusing for a child to understand. Obviously, with any extreme alcohol use, it does affect other family members and there's always conflict. It was quite difficult to kind of understand growing up. And subsequently, I did see a couple of family members pass very, very young as a direct link to alcohol misuse. So, it was, you feel very conflicted because you love someone so much. But you don't quite understand why they're doing what they're doing. And it's only, I think, later in life as an adult that you can kind of start piecing things together and start really making sense of a childhood that's been touched by alcohol.
And if somebody was the loved one of an alcoholic, how should they support their loved one?
It's very difficult for me to sort of, give that answer because, I was a child at the time. And as a child, you don't want them to be changing into a person that kind of you don't understand or you don't feel secure around. So it's very difficult as a child to really feel like you have any control or power. Having seen family members try to navigate alcohol addiction of a loved one, I think it's very easy for us to feel like frustrated, angry, resentful. It's very, very easy to do that. But also wanting to support them and maybe not quite understanding why they're doing something that they want to do. I think it puts the loved ones in a really, really awkward position. Having, seen what I've seen, I think the best thing that someone can do if a loved one is suffering from alcohol addiction is to try to communicate just how much it's affecting you. Because if you don't talk about it, the anger and resentment does build. But it's supporting and nurturing that individual to seek help. Because, this is one thing I will say, is you can't make someone get sober, whether it's from drugs or alcohol. That has absolutely got to come from the individual. But yet we want so much to help that person that we make it all about us and our mission. And, that often makes the person who's caring for someone with an addiction in a situation where I've lost my train of thought.
No, it's fine.
It kind of puts
it creates a codependency.
Yeah, absolutely. Your mental health will suffer. The person who's suffering from the addiction is feeling the added pressure of letting someone down and, ultimately they do know what they're doing is impacting other people, but they might not be in a place where they feel that they, that they can actually tackle their addiction. But on the flip side, it's got to come from a place of understanding. And I feel that the more knowledge you can arm yourself with, and there's numerous charities, there's numerous books out there and podcasts, there's so much information available now that really wasn't available to me and my loved ones back then, really understanding addiction and what it is and why people may be acting in the ways that they are. It's really going to help you to help them. But support is the only thing that you can really do, but you ultimately, I feel, have to protect yourself, okay? Because, again, if someone doesn't want to change, they're not going to change. And you can support them, but if it's going to be at the point of where you're losing yourself and it's actually making you unwell and putting you in a negative space, you've got to kind of, really weigh up whether you're in the right place to actually support that person or not.
So what was it like, watching your family members, suffer from alcoholism and then ultimately pass away from it?
It's absolutely horrific. And I don't think anyone can say that it's a comfortable, pretty death, because it wasn't at all, and it's something that does stick with you. It's horrible to witness someone that you love go and suffer so much, but it's also the impact that it has on it ricochets. It ricochets, the ripple effects are felt through the rest of the family, friends and people around them. It's quite a traumatic, experience to witness. And I think, people don't quite understand that death by alcohol is so long. It's years and years of decline. It's so slow, and it's just, you see people, dying a very, very slow death, and the death itself, it's not pretty at all. It's
not like where I'm from. It's like it's like the biggest overdose place in America, and like that kills you instantly almost, But with alcohol, like you said, I mean, it's over decades sometimes.
Absolutely.
So even after experiencing all of that, what led you to start drinking?
So I was really anti-alcohol. I remember pledging to myself, and others around me that when I hit 18, I wasn't going to drink. It really affected me in such a way. But, I grew up in a generation of, I guess the party scene. I was definitely a very young socialite. I liked, to go out, meet people, dancing. It wasn't so much about the alcohol back then. And it was very much a slow build up. I could take it or leave it, but it was a social thing. And there was no alcohol use because of my childhood or any sort of traumas. That actually manifested in, ironically, an eating disorder. And therapists, concluded it was a way of controlling what I couldn't control through my childhood. So it just goes to show that, experience doesn't necessarily manifest itself in the same way. But yeah, it was, sorry, repeat back to the original question because I completely lost my train of thought.
No, it's okay. Yeah, so even after seeing your family suffer from alcoholism, what led you to then in turn drinking yourself?
Yeah. So again, it wasn't I'm going to drink because my life was so terrible and I suffered, trauma through, family members drinking in my childhood. It wasn't like that. It was actually that manifested in an eating disorder. For me, my drinking, it was about socializing. When I was growing up, it was very much, the ladette era. Women were drinking as much as men. We were falling out of clubs. It was a very different place back then. You got your £1 Alka-Pops. Alka-Pops never existed, before before the period of time where I was socializing. And it was all about aiming drinks and stuff at the younger generation. They were cheap. There was bar crawls. We were falling in and out of clubs. And it was very much a social thing, but my drinking wasn't necessarily excessive back then. For me, I loved the nightlife scene. I loved the freedom. I loved the power of being a woman who could dress what the fuck she wanted and say what she wanted and do what she wanted. And, the media was very different back then, because just as I was doing it, all the celebrities that you idolised were all falling out of clubs. I mean, look at, Prince William and Harry, the royal family were doing exactly the same as what we were doing. It's quite interesting how you can look at the way you are with alcohol as a younger person and relate it to examples of extreme alcohol misuse and go, well, I'm not doing that. I'm not hiding bottles of vodka around the house. I'm not needing to drink in the morning. I'm not blacking out in the middle of the day. So it's all cool. You've got control over it. It's what we do. We're young and we're having fun.
And in Essex, there's like a massive party culture, even still, you know? It's kind of like the Essex way.
It absolutely was. And I loved it. I relished it. I was in London. I was all over Essex and Hertfordshire. I loved it. Just loved the people. I loved the music. I loved the socialising. Alcohol wasn't the central point of that, but it was.
Yeah.
It was a cultural, central point to all this sort of party era. But it wasn't kind of, to me, I just constantly benchmarked against, there's the bad drinkers and then there's the good drinkers, and I'm the good drinker and that's all cool. But what I did find was, as I, went through my 20s, the way that I was interacting and reacting to alcohol started to shift. And I don't think there was any central reason for the shift, just more tolerance and building up to things, and you started to off in your late teens and early 20s, and it's about the clubs and the socialising, and then you meet boyfriends, and then you go for sophisticated dinners with bottles of wine, and dinners at home with wine, and what became a social way of drinking slowly creeps into the house. And I think that adds another level of toxicity, because it's not the Friday and Saturday nights that you're drinking and maybe, the odd night of the week after work. It becomes that and the home drinking. And then as you go into your 30s, in my case, and, start having children, or the one child, the drinking changes again. The whole mummy wine culture becomes a thing that you never knew existed. So I don't think there's a linear timeline, with my sort of history of drinking. It's something that started innocently and then shifted and changed, and, thrown in there was, extreme bouts of drinking. Somewhere along the line, I just lost this ability to say no. If I started a glass of wine, I wanted the lot. I wanted the bottle, and everyone had to be on my vibe, right? Credit card behind the bar, everyone's my mate. Everyone is drinking like me, and we're drinking to the extreme. And
so you feel that at that point it was like a compulsion, though? It was like a...
Yeah, absolutely. You don't realise it at the time, but absolutely. I would drink hard and fast without even realising it. It was... And then next minute I'd be at home somehow, a complete blackout. Yeah. And some people maybe have never experienced it, but that was a regular occurrence for me.
Did you go through withdrawals whenever you tried to get sober?
No.
So, and you mentioned mommy wine culture. What is that?
Well, I think if you're a mum, you probably have been exposed to it. It's the mugs. Mummy's power juice, and it's the memes that go around. Facebook was where they started appearing, and it was all these memes like by hurrah for gin, and it's just like everything's around how awful parenting is and how much you need wine to cope with parenting, and it's the glamorous things. When you start looking into it, there's mugs, there's t-shirts, there's glasses, there's gifts, there's birthday cards and every sort of card in between that are all sort of, pushing on this notion that you've done a good job, darling. Kids are awful. The husband's an arsehole. You need to drink. Let's all have a gin. Let's have a Prosecco. And I was down for that. I felt like I was part of a club that I could definitely be down with. You know, I loved hosting. I'm happy to be hosting the Prosecco because it's classy, right? If we're having nice nibbles and we're quaffing, you know, your Prosecco, that's cool. Do you know what I mean? We're just socialising. But actually, when I look back, you know, my drinking had definitely, it wasn't in a good place. You know, I wasn't an everyday drinker, but if I was drinking, I found it very difficult to stop, whether that being once I'd opened a bottle, I couldn't just finish at one glass. I mean, I could, but I really didn't want to, you know, so if I'd be out for dinner, I'd have a glass and then I would automatically you'd be having a conversation with me and I'd be like, where's the waiter? Wanting, it's that compulsion almost, you know, it's almost an all or nothing. It was quite exhausting. But yeah, when for the mummy wine culture, you know, I was bang on it. It was like a great way of socialising. This is a new club. But looking back on it, you know, I suffered really badly with postnatal depression. You know, I had a history of depression anyway over the years of drinking. And, you know, you're someone who's vulnerable, right? Let's face it. You're a new mum, you're sleep deprived, you haven't got a clue what you're doing. You're vulnerable. Adds, you know, postnatal depression into the mix and, you know, extreme anxiety like, you know, I and a lot of people that I know have experienced. Then you're adding alcohol, and alcohol is being sold to you as the solution to parenting and the way you're feeling. It's a really, really toxic combination. And I just didn't see it at the time. I did not see that I was adding fuel to the fire. I didn't see it.
Do you believe that connection with other people is a big part of recovery or sobriety?
Oh, God, absolutely. Absolutely. It's everything. So, you know, when I got sober and actually got sober, the period of sobriety that I'm in now was, you know, I was in the pandemic, you know, and kind of like in the midst of the kind of first part of the pandemic, and my drinking massively escalated as a lot of people's did, you know, because let's face it, you're all in it together and you can crack open the wine at 11. Quite scary territory I found myself sort of slipping into. And what I had found was just a few years before when I really started thinking I need to address my relationship with alcohol, and I had some stints of like conscious sobriety, should I say. I don't know how I found it, but I found sober Instagram. No one knows how they stumble across it, but you find it. And I remember seeing these people that were talking about sobriety, but not the extremes of like the family members that I had seen. It was the way of drinking like I drank. And I was finding people that I felt like they were my people. I could resonate with what they were saying. And, oh my God, you know, they're living these lives and they have friends and they have a social life and they seem to be thriving. And I was like, this is amazing. I didn't know it existed because I had looked at support groups. You know, AA is the obvious one. And for various different reasons, it just didn't resonate with me. And that means that you're in this no man's land. And where do you go? You know, you start Googling, am I an alcoholic? And there is no straight answer of, you know, what it means to be an alcoholic. And are you drinking enough to go to your GP and for them to be taking you seriously? Because I had mentioned it to my GP before and they're like, okay, just try and cut down. You know what I mean? We've all been here, but just try and do this and that and the other strategies. And you know that that's not enough. And you're desperate for connection and you're desperate for someone to point you in the right direction. And when you can't find that, it's the most lonely place to be. It's like being in this no man's land. You know, you're not good enough to drink like a normal person, not feel like hear the little voice inside your head telling you that what you're doing is not good for you, but you're not extreme enough for people to be putting their arms around you and saying, you need help. I'm going to support you to get help. So for me, finding this community on Instagram, honestly, it was a game changer. So I started following a few accounts and, you know, there's still these accounts that was from my personal Instagram account. And it was actually, you know, when I really wanted to go for my sobriety, I knew that was going to be the key that was going to get me completely sober. And I set up my Women on a Sober Mission account, absolutely kept it private. I locked it down so much that I went through and physically blocked anyone that I knew because I didn't want to be found. I wanted to be in a safe space. And I just followed sobriety accounts. And not just anyone and everyone, people that I felt like they were walking the sort of life, sort of background history that I had, that I could relate to and living the sort of life that I wanted to be, that I kind of knew where I wanted to go but didn't quite know what it would look like or how to get there. And it was just focusing myself and immersing myself in this community of people that had kind of, they'd done what I want to do. They were absolutely thriving. They hadn't grown 6 heads and a tail, you know what I mean? They were still going out and interacting with the world. And they were just smashing life and connecting and reaching out and sort of, oh, hi, I'm struggling today. And putting myself out there and just, doing a post, writing about how I was feeling that day. It was the biggest relief, and everyone just wraps their arms around you. You've got people over in the States who, like my biggest mentors, kind of in early sobriety, connecting with you. It's just absolutely incredible. I can't tell you how much it means to me. I'm getting quite emotional that, that I had, people that wanted to take some time out of their day to go, you can do this, checking in. Still sober? Good on you, So, yeah, I'm getting really emotional about it. Sorry. Right. Sorry.
You'll have me tearing up as well.
You just have a lot of people to be thankful for. Sorry.
So do you think that people can go clubbing or partying sober and it still be safe?
Yeah. Yeah. If it's safe for you, right? It's judgment call. I know a lot of people that won't have an alcohol-free drink because they find it triggering. And I feel that, my personal experience is that I wasn't prepared to going back to my early days when I first started drinking, it wasn't about the alcohol. I love interacting. I love meeting people. I love chatting. I love dancing. For alcohol was a secondary thing that unfortunately over a sustained period of time became a massive, massive problem for me. You've got to do you, right? Some people get sober and they realise that actually they're real introverts and they're happy being at home. And that was something that I was gobsmacked to find out about myself, is that's me.
So you haven't been out clubbing or anything?
Yeah, no, I have. But I find that actually I'm a lot more introverted. People automatically assume I'm super, super confident. And actually confidence for me comes from being in a situation where I'm in control, or, I'm confident in, I'm confident in my ability to do something. So in a work situation, I can talk to anyone. Put me in a room where I don't know anyone and I haven't got anyone that I know there, it's like, I don't like it. And I've definitely found that I strike a happy balance now. I wouldn't want to be out clubbing every day, actually, because I've got too many other things that I'm interested in now. Yeah. It's just a tiny little part of my social life. I've got so many different, interests and things that I want to do, pardon me, that actually clubbing's not everything. But no, why not? If you want to and it's bringing something to you, then do it. If you feel like you have to and you don't want to be there and you're thinking you're going to be triggered, don't do it. Who are you doing it for? Yep. What I've realised is you've only got yourself to prove to. Fuck everyone else. It's all about you. It's one life and you've got to live a life that resonates with you. Don't feel like you have to do things that are going to be to your detriment.
Right.
Don't do it.
I've got to hook you up with my wife because she's like, proper Essex girl, loves to go out and go.
She's going to have to come out with my girls.
That's all right.
Because actually when you find the right people, it is a safe space. You know, I'm really lucky that I've found a whole new, I'm not like saying that my mates were all, they're all fantastic, but I've got a group of friends who some don't drink. Oh my God, some actually don't drink because they've never liked drinking, never had a problem. But God, who would have thought that people sometimes don't drink because they don't want to? So, I've got a group of friends that won't pressurise you. They might drink, but they're not going to force you to drink. You're in a safe space. Yeah. And I have the best bloody nights out. Honestly, it's all about the crack. It's all, no, not the drugs crack, right? Yeah. Just to be clear. It's all about having a laugh and just enjoying ourselves and being, in a great space where you're just bringing some joy to one another. So, yeah. I'm up for, I still go out.
I heard that there's a culture around business. And I know that you're in the event space. So around business and drinking, what's your experience with that?
I think different industries, there's different nuances around drinking. One of the big things that I thought was I genuinely, coming out of the pandemic, bearing in mind my industry was illegal during the pandemic, but coming out of the pandemic, I was moving into a new job, and actually I was working on the UK's largest business awards programme. And I knew I'd be having to meet business leaders and talk to people and socialise with people and network with people. And I'm not lying when I was terrified. I didn't know whether I could do it. I was actually worried I wouldn't be able to do my job anymore, But what I have found is the total opposite. I think the more open you are, it's actually your superpower. My sobriety is massively my superpower in business. I have the best conversations with people because I'm vulnerable, and actually most people have had an experience where alcohol misuse has touched their lives in some form or another, whether it's, direct, they're drinking, or family members drinking, or people they know, close friends, family friends have been drinking. Most people can kind of relate. And I think when you stand in your truth, who can come at you for your decision, And that was one of the things I found was being honest. I don't drink, and this is why. It was absolutely my superpower, because you often find you spark a conversation with people and they have questions, and they're seeing someone that, to them is thriving, and they want to, they might be concerned about their drinking, and they're like, how did you do it? What was your background? Because I think for many of us, we have this whole one-sided extreme that we think about when we think of someone who has some level of addiction or, misuses alcohol. And it generally is the idea of on a park bench, drinking out a brown paper bag, pouring vodka on your cornflakes, losing their job, losing their wife or husband, like that real extreme end. And yes, that does happen, but let's face it, there's a whole swathe of the population, I'd say the majority of the drinking population, that is in this kind of no man's land of feeling like they're probably drinking too much, but culturally can't unravel that.
And they're not suffering the consequences that other people are. So it just continues.
It just continues. They are suffering consequences.
Yeah.
But it's not, they're benchmarking against the extreme. And that benchmarking is what keeps us stuck for longer. Because we're always, am I an alcoholic? What's come up? Am I that extreme? Am I, as extreme as the example I've seen on TV of, if you probably never watched EastEnders, or maybe you're down for it now that you're over in the UK, but, Phil Mitchell, the alcoholic, we'd be looking at that extreme sort of end of addiction and be like, well, I'm not like that, so I'm okay. But then I'm not.
And do you find that because you grew up in a family of people that, were drinking excessively, that you compared your drinking to them and justified it?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think, we all have different paths that lead us to the same place. And it's not about the amount of alcohol you consume. It's about how you feel your life is being impacted. And if you're feeling like your drinking is causing you negative consequences, it means that you are not living life to its full, you're not achieving things you want to achieve as a direct result from alcohol, it's all the same. It's all the same. It's just different routes to it. But yeah, I massively used to benchmark. Of course I did. You know, I was like the party girl, social drinking. I drank and drank. I drank in the way that drinkers are meant to drink, social to excess. You know, that was the dumb thing. But I wasn't that bad.
So it's safe to say you never hit like a rock bottom.
I'd say I had many rock bottom moments in the sense of, you know, crazy stuff, you know, massive regrets. But no, there wasn't a pivotal, you know, rock bottom moment where I woke up and was like, that's it, I'm done. It wasn't like that for me.
So what motivated you to get sober if you didn't have like that? Because people are under this assumption that you have to hit a rock bottom to want to change. But really, if you didn't have that, then what motivated you to get sober?
I'm going to be honest, and I think most people, they think about it, probably experience this on a regular basis. If you've drank too much and it's caused a negative consequence, there's a voice inside your head that's saying, I'm probably not doing what I should be doing, you know, or I'm drinking too much. And there is a voice there. I chose to ignore that voice for quite a long time. Having my child and coming out the back end of the postnatal depression, really started making me think, you know, I should start behaving a bit better. You know, I just felt like I wasn't being the best mum I could be. But it was actually, and it's not alcohol related, but it was a friend's cancer diagnosis that really got me thinking about my alcohol use from a health angle. My friend, she got diagnosed with breast cancer, you know, young. She was in her 30s, and she, you know, massively campaigned to raise awareness about the links between cancer and actually, you know, how we could be preventing cancers. So what are we putting in and on our body that is, you know, directly linked to cancers? And it really started resonating with me. And it was just the fear that, you know, we're mums. I've always had massive health anxieties, yet I was putting, you know, a substance in my body that is a poison and linked to, you know, for women, 7 different types of cancer. And I was consuming it, you know, in you know, large quantities on a very regular basis. And it was her journey that kind of got me looking at my alcohol use from a health angle. And that's really what triggered it for me. And it took a good sort of 3 years of that sort of time period for me to, you know, be trying to moderate my drinking, right? And I could, you know, like I say, I wasn't drinking every day, but it was at these controlled periods of not drinking. And of course I didn't drink when I was pregnant, and I managed that. So why can't I do it like normally? But I found it really, really, really difficult. But yeah, it was actually a friend, you know, that really inspired me.
And do you consider yourself in recovery, or are you just sober?
I'm sober. I think there's so much stigma around labels, right? And I want to try and come across in the right way that isn't, this is not intended to, you know, for anyone that wants to label their journey, that's fine, it's for you. But for me, I don't feel I have to call myself something. I don't resonate with the word alcoholic or feeling like I'm suffering from something that I can't have a hand in controlling. And by that, I mean, you know, it was well within my power to reach out to people that were sober and doing, you know, what I wanted to do. And that's like living a life of sobriety successfully. That was within my power. I had to take that first step. And I like to empower myself and others to say, I got addicted to an addictive substance. It's so complicated because it isn't just about the alcohol. It's the society it's in the culture. It's so much more complicated than just taking a drink. But I just feel, for me, I don't choose to call myself an alcoholic. I don't drink. Sober's probably the closest word, but I don't really resonate with anything, you know. It's a really funny one, isn't it? And maybe it's because I saw family members being labelled alcoholic, and that label has stuck with them, even though they're sober. And I find that a bit of a shame, because it makes it feel like a chain that's being carried, like a ball and chain that they're carrying around, because can't we ever just move on and be different? Because we are different. People say that people can't change. Anyone that's successfully sober, I think, will prove that theory, you know, completely different, because I think someone can completely change.
Well, and do you think that there's ever going to be a time in your life where you'll be able to drink successfully?
No, and I don't want to. That's the difference. That is the difference. There is no desire, absolutely no desire to drink, because what is it going to give me? I've been through a pandemic. I've been through deaths. I've lost jobs in that time due to, you know, the pandemic. And I survived everything. You know, my friend passed away on day 3 of my sobriety journey. And here we go again. But she, you know, she lost her life. And these events, you can choose to drink. I could have chose to honour my friend's passing, who campaigned so strongly to, you know, raise awareness about our health. I could have chose to honour her memory by drinking and using it as an excuse to fall off the wagon because I was only on day 3 and I could try again. What a shitty way to honour someone's memory, you know? And I found the strength to be able to go, oh, it's fucking hard, but I'm going to do it because I can do it. And I have a choice because I still have a life. She doesn't. So, yeah, sorry, I completely lost my train of thought. But
no, thank you for that. Thank you.
Sorry, I'm just literally going to be crying the whole way through this. Sorry.
No, you're fine. You're fine. Don't. I mean, this is all emotional stuff, you know. But, you know, I think going back to your, you know, sort of question about, you know, do I ever think I'd want, you know, drinks? Alcohol is nothing for me anymore, because when you realise just how good life can be and how good life actually is, you know, we're fucking lucky to have our health, to have the opportunity to be what we want, to grow and expand. And you can't do that with alcohol. And I think trying to moderate my drinking is exhausting. It's exhausting, and it does nothing for your self-esteem to constantly feel like you are failing. Because that's what I was doing. I was failing all the time at moderation. Just because I could do it a few times doesn't mean I could do it every time. And I was just constantly in a failure loop. It does nothing for you to feel that you can't do it. You can't get anything right. And I just think when you've been in a cycle of shit and you're on the other side, why would you want to? And what has changed about your life in sobriety?
Well, for the first time in my adult life, I know who I am. And I'm still finding out who I am, and it's great. It's an exciting journey. But you know, everything changed. Everything changed, you know. I'm a better mum. I still constantly get the mum guilt, and I'm definitely not the world's best mum, but I'm a present mum and I do the absolute best I can. You know, career, I'm never hungover. I'm always the one at, you know, events who's in control and being able to remember conversations. You know, I feel good. I'm able to, you know, perform at the best of my ability, my relationship with my husband, with my family, all better. And just the confidence that comes with it. The confidence to say no. I know it sounds like really simple, but I think so many of us just say yes all the time. Yes, yes. When it's, you know, we're doing...
To people please.
People please. And it's not even resonating with us. And you say it so much, you don't even know what you like what brings you joy, you just lose it, you know. And there is no freer feeling than having been stripped back, because when you give up alcohol, you're stripping everything back. You're learning to feel emotions. I mean, I really didn't understand that feeling happy could feel so uncomfortable, because it was such a heightened emotion. It felt uncomfortable. Didn't even have to deal with like extreme happiness, you know. But when you learn to deal with emotions and know that whatever life throws at you, that you actually have got the strength to deal with it. Most people think they don't, but you really do. You have the tools. Sometimes you just need the right support system around you. And that is one thing I will say is absolutely crucial for any recovery journey. Whether you go to treatment centres, AA route, or there's so many different routes to help. And that's what it all comes down to. It's about help and support when you need it most. And there is no one that I think can successfully do it without having some level of support mechanism from people that get where where you're going and where you've been.
What's it like to experience loss in sobriety, to actually have to feel the emotions?
It's tough, but, and this is a big but, and I think about this quite a lot. I think we're meant to feel emotions because we're meant to feel everything, and then we deal with it, you process it. And I feel that you come out of that, the other side of that, and you are raw and you are battered, but it's done. And those emotions don't last as long as, for example, when you are, self-medicating and damping down those feelings and emotions with alcohol. You're kind of trying to put it in a box, but actually it's grief and everything is kind of dragging out and it's staying with you for a lot longer. And then there's this box that you kind of forgot about. At some point, someone's going, there's a box over here, you need to open it. And it comes out later in life. Whereas I think with grief and sobriety, you also know the tools, right? You know the good things to do that's kind of going to help you through that situation. For me, exercise was a massive thing. And oh my God, I know I sound so cliche saying this because, I used to do the eye roll when people would be like, go and meditate, go for a run. You're like, just fucking want to feel better. Sod meditating, sod go for a run. Where's the pill? Give me something that's going to make me feel better right now. But the fact is, it's not about the pill, magic pill. It's about, here's some tools. Learn how to use those tools and you can deal with anything that comes up. And that's what you do find with going through grief and going through loss and going through, hardship and sobriety, is that you're better equipped to deal with it quicker. So yeah, you feel the emotions, but I think you process it a lot quicker and in a more healthier way. So
as somebody that didn't go to rehab, do you think that rehab is necessary for some people?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I feel there's situations where medical intervention is absolutely needed. And, treatment facilities can help provide that. And it's a more intense way of holding you when you really need to be held, and in a professional setting, because absolutely there are many situations where that's needed. And actually it's more common, I think, than the extreme end. It really depends where people are as well with their mental health. It's not just about the addiction. I feel that a lot of people who have a level of addiction are probably, you don't drink and use drugs and come out with your mental health intact, right? You're probably in a bad situation, and actually having that intense intervention to kind of treat multiple things that's going on, I think is really, really valid. I think that some treatment facilities, where they fall short is the aftercare. Because if you're in a setting where you've got people who are exactly in the situation as you, and you're in this warm and cozy bubble, and you're having the treatment, you're having the therapy, what happens after? And it's a big question. And I feel that not every treatment facility bridges that gap, because you need support afterwards.
In America, the model is really based on aftercare. And I love that because I was able to go to treatment for like 120 days and stay within that system and live in a sober living and have the aftercare. And I think that the UK is, most of the times like 4 or 5 years behind America in regards to stuff like that. But one of the reasons why I love Steps Together is because they actually include a year of free aftercare in anybody that comes through any part of their system. And I think that a lot of the facilities in the UK are lacking in that way. You kind of go there for 7 to 28 days and then you leave and then it's like, what now?
Absolutely. And, experience from what I've seen, and it is limited, and this was going back a long, long time ago, and I really can't, talk with any great knowledge here, but it was come out of a very, very expensive treatment facility and go to AA. Now, AA is amazing, but it doesn't resonate with everyone. And I think when you're vulnerable, if you don't know where to go and you don't know how to find your people and your support mechanism, what are you going to do? Well,
and I think AA can be quite intimidating to some people, you know what I mean? So even if it would work for, some people, they don't know where to start. They don't know how to communicate with those people. And yeah, no, I get what you're saying.
It's just a vicious circle. And what I really, want to impart is this choice. There's choice of treatment facilities. There's choice. It's a myriad of ways to get sober nowadays. We are so lucky in the 3.5 years that I've been, in the sobriety space. There is so much out there, free information, meetups, activities, socializing. Because again, you can come out of a treatment facility. What are you going to do? Live under a rock for the rest of your life? What the fuck is the point, right? We want to come out. We want to be able to live, right? Surely that's the reason we want to get sober. And you need to have people that are able to kind of hold you close and be like, let's go into that big wide world and let's take it baby steps, And that's great. There's sober social events that are out there now. Fucking brilliant. Yeah, because you might want to go to a nightclub, but you might not be ready to be around booze. Well, if you've got a sober club night, you've got the best of both worlds. And it's just saying there's so much choice now. The stigma really isn't there that used to be there, and I can safely say this, I haven't had any negativity. Maybe it's because of the way that I am this is me, take it or fucking leave it, but in the business world especially, that's like the biggest untapped taboo, right? Of, can you work, can you network, can you do business sober? And actually, yeah, you can, The world is our oyster now. If alcohol-free drinks are your thing, you can go into bars and you can enjoy experience, right? We're not talking about let's replicate wine, because you're never going to be able to replicate wine because the only thing you drank wine for was the buzz that it gave you, right? And it's not there anymore.
It's not for the taste, for
It's
sure.
not there anymore. But you can have that experience of, just like you would eat, that experience of flavour and combinations. And that's quite cool. If that's your bag, whole new world, but yeah, there's just so many options out there now. And if something hasn't worked for you, move on, try something else, because there will be something. You got to find your people, right?
Definitely.
You got to find your people for sure.
If somebody is struggling with whether they should get sober, what advice would you give them?
If you're even thinking about it, it's a problem, right? Because if it's not a problem, you wouldn't be thinking about it. That is the crux of it. Now, how long you stay in that no man's land of, have I got enough of a problem to think about addressing it, is up to you. You could spend the rest of your life until you get to the point where some of my family members were and you die from it, right? Or you can, get sober and go and live, right? Go, okay, bye. I've done that. And that was great. And, it's a hard thing when you get sober as well, because it weren't all bad. There was probably a lot of good times, especially around alcohol. And it is a bit like, oh, God, I'm going to leave that, and it can feel quite emotional. But you've done it and it's not serving you anymore. And that's fine too. So find what's serving you. There is no stigma. There's tons of help. Hell, for kids these days, they don't even want to drink, right? You know, they're more health conscious. And I just think if you think it's a problem, or if that voice inside your head, which is your conscience, is telling you that something isn't serving you, it ain't serving you. And it's fine to let that go. You can say goodbye. You know, that's it.
Love that. Thank you.
It's okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
It was emotional.
This was the Steps Together podcast. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you so much for having me.